Hello and welcome to After Scientology, Straight Up and Vertical, the weekly show where usually Tony Ortega and I get together and go over the week's events in Scientology as reported on Tony's blog. But as you can see, I am joined this week by guest host Alexander Barnes-Ross, otherwise known as Apostate Alex. Hey, Alex. So welcome to the guest slot this week.
Thank you for having me. And what an honor. I mean, firstly, I don't want to I'm not stealing Tony's show. I don't want to step on his toes. I want to confirm to everyone already that we both have spoken to Tony. He's totally okay with this. And I'm just I thought there's been a lot going on in the ideal org world and here in the UK. And seeing as Tony's not here, it's actually a good opportunity maybe for us to come together in his absence. And, when he's back, I'm sure he'll catch up with you on all of the amazing, wonderful stuff that he's been putting out this week while he's been away.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Alex. It was really just logistics, travel logistics and stuff that got in our way for the last 2 weeks with Tony and I, because I'm traveling this week. He was on vacation last week, et cetera. So that's all that's happening right now. And we're just kind of rolling with it. So Alex, in terms of news in the Scientology world, there are a couple things happening that I definitely wanted to cover with you. First off, I think we'll cover my side of the world, my side of the pond, so to speak, because the big news in Scientology right now is the opening of the Austin Ideal Org. It's been sitting there renovated as a building across the street from the University of Texas for many years now. And they have been operating out of a sort of a outdoor mall location right across the street from a cemetery, which I just cannot stop laughing about because I just think it's so perfect. But anyway, now they're not there anymore. Now they're not from the cemetery. Now they're in the big building, and the opening was yesterday. And Kat Coombs, who has been a guest on my podcast back in 2017, was there for it and reported on Tony's blog. And so we saw a little bit of David Miscavige talking about Crazy Town and talking about some of the local Scientology whales and all of that. And so I guess my question for you is, what's your perspective on this from, literally another country watching this from afar?
I think I agree. It makes no sense to move an ideal morgue further away from a cemetery. I think it would make more sense to have them next door to each other.
Yeah.
But no, I think my first immediate response is how I'm surprised at how quickly they've been on it with their PR with relation to the ideal org opening. Because if you look at the New Year's event, if you look at the IAS event, and the opening of the new Qual building at St. Hill, it takes them a few days, if not a week or so afterwards, to get the press release done, the pictures edited and uploaded onto Scientology.org. But less than 24 hours after it happened, it's now front page on their website with pictures of, the event and the building. And obviously there's a lot of stuff they do beforehand, to prepare for that, but they're not normally quite as on it. And I think that just demonstrates their need to outflow, because they're obviously shrinking, and the Scientology policy is, lots of outflow means you'll get inflow. So I think that's notable. But I think, as you mentioned, from someone abroad, when I was in Scientology, it seemed like there was an ideal org opening every week, right? Scientology was expanding. We're opening these new buildings every week. And it's like, wow, this is the proof. And obviously that hasn't happened for 4 years now. So I think there's a lot of hype. So they're probably quite desperate to get it out there. But, if you scratch the surface and look a little bit deeper, you can tell that things are a bit of a struggle. There were only 4 officials on the stage with David Miscavige, when there's usually 4, 5, 6 around that time. But it was people from the local religious group association and, smaller kind of groups like this, not the mayor or the governor.
I think that the lead guy was the president of the local chapter of the NAACP.
Yeah.
That was the big draw they had. Yeah, sorry.
Whereas historically, yeah, no, you're right. And historically, at their big events, like at London Org when it opened, they had, the commissioner of the Met of the City of London Police, and they had a person from the United Nations. Like they historically have had quite big names,
Yep, yep.
even if they don't necessarily have power themselves, but names. And they just didn't have that at all. And I think little things like that are a sign of Scientology's struggle.
Well, absolutely. In fact, I will go one step further and say that I think now the word is out after a big controversy in the mayoral race in Los Angeles last year over the fact that I think, if I remember right, one of the candidates got into a big public, sort of brouhaha because she had spoken at a Scientology opening or at an event of some kind. She'd been affiliated with Scientology in that way. And that was used against her in the political campaign when she was running for mayor. If I'm remembering all this right from last year or the year before, I think it was last year. And in other words, there's consequences. And this was a very public thing. This was not a small, mentioned in the LA Village Voice or something. This was LA Times front page kind of stuff. It was like a big deal that it was like Scientology, what? And she couldn't backpedal fast enough. No, 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 no. I wasn't, no, 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 no. So I think the toxicity of Scientology's PR has very much caught up with them in terms of trying to wrangle in opinion leaders. This is what they go for, opinion leaders, they say, to have this PR area control to show how influential and safe they are. They call it, there's a lot of terms for this in Scientology, right? That I'm throwing here. Safe pointing. They want a safe environment. In other words, they want people to front for them so that they can get away with their nonsense and abuses and not get in trouble with the law or with local regulatory authorities. And so that's why they're always working on this stuff. And I think you're absolutely right. I think the caliber of speaker they're getting, and not that there's anything wrong with the NAACP, but what the hell does that have to do with Scientology? Nothing. Right? How is that at all relevant? And that's the best they can get to their Austin opening, So pretty telling in that regard, I think. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it's from a former Scientologist perspective, it's quite funny because what value does, I'm not dissing any of these groups, right? The local interfaith community, right? I'm sure they do great work, but what value does that hold for Scientology? The purpose of safe pointing is so that they have protections and people look the other way when the light is shone in their direction or they're under fire or whatever. The whole point is a self-protection action for Scientology. What benefit does this interfaith group have, or these other, it's hilarious. As a former Scientologist, I'm looking at going you're just anyone that you can get, you'll take. It's kind of an act of desperation. And what does that mean for Scientology policy, which is supposed to work 100% of the time if you apply it correctly? Well, what's changed? Because it clearly worked in London when you got the chief of the police here. Why is it not working now? Is it perhaps because Scientology doesn't work?
Yeah, thank. Another interesting point on this that I wanted to mention, just because I thought it was relevant to, what's going on in the world with Scientology these days, that Kat mentioned to me, she and I were speaking as well, messaging yesterday, and she mentioned that there were protesters there, and they were so loud that they were really kind of impinging on the presentation. And I couldn't help but think about, what you all got up to over in the UK when they were opening up the Qual building, right? And how you had even gotten in one of the photos, right? And I thought that's where you want to do your protesting. That's exactly the right target. A targeted event of a public nature that is going to, potentially disrupt their activities on that day is the perfect place to go do a loud protest and let the public out there who were kind of seeing this unusual event happening that day. What a great place to, bring that attention and controversy. So I thought that was a very well-placed, well-timed use of that tactic. And I wanted to comment on that too.
Oh, yeah. And they're going to have to come up with something good and quick, because this is going to continue to be a problem, because David Miscavige has been, touting these new ideal orgs that were opening. This year we were meant to have Paris was meant to happen in January. It still hasn't, but it's due to happen any time. There are these, like, there's a big program happening, returning to these ideal org events. And David Miscavige is the only one that can open an ideal org, right? He
Mhm.
could back out of the qual building thing at St. Hill, which he did because he didn't want to be up on stage whilst protesters are shouting and make him look bad, and it's kind of embarrassing. So he chickened out because he can, because it's an internal building, it's not public. An ideal org, he can't chicken out of that. So
Right.
if there's protests going on and people shouting, you know, they're going to have to think of some way of dealing with that problem, because it's not going to go away and it's going to continue and get worse. And they're going to have problems because you can't put up like a soundproof wall across the road every time you have an ideal org opening. And you have to turn the music off the speakers when he's speaking, because otherwise you won't be able to hear him speak in the video and, for the people that are there. So I don't know what they're going to do about it. But it'll be interesting to see.
That's right. I could not agree more. And apparently next week, it's on the lines for Chicago to open, but we're not seeing any real world indication that that is actually going to happen. It's not clear yet, right? In other words, there's no banners up, there's no street closure, there's nothing really set up yet for Chicago, and it's supposed to be a week away. So I guess we'll have to see what happens with that. And then you're kind of keeping an eye on the Paris situation. And we're pretty sure they're going for an opening on that one because of the Summer Olympic Games. Is that, do I have that right?
Yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that Paris will be opening before the summer. They have to. I can't envision a scenario in my head where it would be allowed to happen that they have this brand new ideal org that's built and ready to go, and they've got almost all of the staff they need. I think they're up to like 75 staff or something, 78 staff. So they're almost at the quota. Like, it's so nearly ready, and you've got the Olympics happening like 200 meters away. It's like the next block is they're happening in the summer this year. There's no way I can see a situation where that org wouldn't be allowed to open. So it has to.
Yep.
David Miscavige did say that it was happening in January. We know that there's a Sea Org mission there at the moment, trying to get the last few things over the line. They've completed their CF central folders, like filing system. So I don't know what's holding it up, but I'm expecting it to be any minute. And the same with Chicago. I believe they've put in a permit to close the road a handful of times, if I'm not mistaken. And for whatever reason, it just hasn't happened. So who knows what's going on? But there's clearly some problem that is causing these delays, and it's not unique to just one org.
That's right. And also, let's not forget there's also another opening of another org in Mexico City, I believe. I'm forgetting the name of that place, but they are also doing another opening down there. So that's another Latin American org opening up for them. So this is, they haven't had an opening. This Austin one is the first one since COVID. So this is very much, the IAS event and the New Year's event, and now these openings. The whole thrust of this, according to Miscavige, would be we're back, right? We're going for it. We're planetary clearings right around the corner. Well, I want to point out that, like we were talking about on Friday with this sort of return, the hamster wheel thing of Scientology, that I believe it was the Winter Games in Salt Lake City years ago. Ideal org opening. We're gonna take Scientology to the Olympics and we're gonna blow it away. Nothing happened there. There's no lasting effect. Salt Lake City is a dead organization for Scientology, right? And at Paris isn't going to be any different. They're going to do all this work and all this investiture, and it's not going to really result in anything. So I just feel so confident these days in saying that kind of thing because history's on my side.
It's also another example, a typical example of David Miscavige and Scientology. Everything has to happen now scenario. Like, it's all very like rushed to get it over the line and very short-term thinking, because they're rushing to get all these orgs opened. And yeah, for a couple of months this year, perhaps the whole year, they can string it out. There's an ideal org opening every couple of months, and like, it's all cool and it's exciting. We're expanding, we're back. But then next year, when they've opened the 4 orgs or whatever that they've said they're going to open, Where are they at with the other ones? Because my understanding is that the other orgs that are kind of in refurbishment, like they're nowhere near ready to. It's not like they've got a
Mm-hmm.
line that they can kind of they're processing, and there are some that are near. And as soon as one opens, there's another one almost ready to open. Once they've done these four, it's going to be dead again for probably several years. So they're making a problem for themselves because the hype's going to die down very quickly.
That's right. That's exactly right. Well, I think they might be thinking, and I wanted to ask you about this too, again, from your perspective, right? One is former staff, and two, from your perspective in the UK. They have also the other thing that is happening right now is this executive trainee thing is wrapping up, or at least that seems to be the word around the campfire here, is that these trainees are firing back to their orgs now. And so every org, or most every org, is going to have this complement of highly trained, ready to go, razor sharp, senior, Scientology executives. And I don't know. Do you think that's going to be do you think that's going to push them over the make break point?
Well, if they do, Chris, sign me up. I'm rejoining. I'm gonna go clear. No, absolutely not. I mean, look, they've been the poor guys have been training at Flag for the best part of 3 or 4 years, if not longer for some of them. They've done the OEC FEBC 3 times, cover to cover, back to front. You have to do that to pass the course. That's not including any retreads, or like, if you flunk a star rate and you have to read, like, I can only imagine what these guys have gone through.
Yeah.
I've seen lots of promo for them going back to the orgs, and there's a lot of hype there of like, I can almost, I like, not, I can imagine, but I can almost feel it, like what it would be like inside an org right now, of like, we're opened Austin org and we've got all the teams back from Flag, and we're gonna do, like, they must be so excited of like, wow, Scientology's bloody amazing. Like, that's how I can imagine they would be feeling right now. And it's just really sad because that hype will only last a short time. It will die down. And when the orgs don't produce the results that they are expecting in a year's time, um, what's David Miscavige going to pull out of the bag, And let's not forget as well, we're only 2-3 weeks away from LRH birthday event. So, I haven't heard anything about that at all, whether he's doing anything for it. If he does, I'm guessing it would have to be at Flag, because by now we would have heard through the grapevine that he's booked the Shrine Auditorium or
That's right.
whatever. And I
That's
haven't
right.
heard anything. Have you heard? Nout?
Oh,
No.
I haven't heard anything, and I'll tell you, but here's what I think is going to happen. I love predictions, right? I'm always so good at them. But let me say, with having been part of so many of these training projects, or what they call evolutions in Scientology, and firing back to their orgs, there is so much anticipation in the air right now in the world of Scientology, and there is a lot of anxiety, masked as excitement, um, over the fact that those stats have got to go straight up in vertical now. Like, that's what's expected of these org teams, these executives going back to their churches, is if they don't have straight up and vertical statistics, then they are failures, and that is the only acceptable outcome. In fact, Hubbard himself wrote that when FEBCs, when these highly trained executives go back to their churches, if they don't have the stats straight up and vertical, like in 2-3 weeks, all right, they get recalled. No, you didn't do it right. You missed, you failed. You're not a product, because it's supposed to be that easy, right? It's supposed to be that sudden, that fast. So I'm anticipating a lot of hype at the birthday game event about this whole thing, and a lot of graphs, showing straight up and vertical, but they won't have the numbers. So it'll be like they went from one book a week to three. Whoa, look at that line. It'll be that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I don't want to underestimate that anxiety, like you say, because the pressure that these guys are under, like you say, if they come back and their stats don't, soar into the clouds, it's not because the training actually doesn't work or doesn't actually benefit, or like, that's not the reason why. The reason is you've been given all of the resources, you've been trained, you know how to do it. So if it's not producing results, it's your fault.
Oh yeah.
So the pressure and the anxiety, like you say, is something that's not to be underestimated.
Oh no, I feel sorry for these guys because they're going to go back to their orgs and they're going to fail miserably, and it's not going to no amount of statistics is going to be enough, right? It's never going to be enough, and they're going to run into brick walls, right? And they're not going to know what happened because they thought it was going to be easy peasy. They were going to walk in and everything was just going to happen and it was going to be so beautiful. And it just doesn't work that way at all. It never does. Again, this is 27 years of staff experience speaking here. They just pile the demands on you, and you can never meet them. You can never really, make the grade. Because at the end of the day, of course, right? Why? Because the product sucks and it doesn't work. That's why. I mean, if it worked and Scientology actually did what it said, we'd be having an intensely different conversation, about all of it. All right. Well, enough about this side. Now let's get over to what you've been up to and what's happening over there. And this is actually pretty exciting stuff. So what do you got for us?
So the first thing I think links to what we were just talking about, the LRH birthday March 13th event. I announced this is going out, we're recording this on Sunday. This is going out Monday. So I announced on Saturday the next UK protest activity, which will be on March 13th. I thought Scientologists around the world are going to be celebrating, the birthday of their founder, L. Ron Hubbard, who died 6 years ago. So I thought we should get together and celebrate life without LRH, because, life is great on the outside of Scientology. And what a better way to show Scientologists that we're not big, nasty, horrible SPs. We're there, we're having a good time, we're happy, and we're not attacking anyone. Like, we are celebrating how great life is without LRH. Come and join us, right? So there's going to be party hats. We've got like party blowers. It's all colorful. The protest signs and banners are it's a different vibe to the IS protest. It's going to obviously be smaller. Excuse me. And we're doing it in London. So hopefully that'll generate a little bit of a different response. But again, I thought it was a nice opportunity to bring people together and continue with that message of like, hey guys, it's okay to doubt. It's okay to worry, to be concerned, to want to leave. If you decide you want to go, we're here to help you blow, right? That's what we're here for. There's a community of us to support you. So just show them that, life isn't scary. If you want to leave, it's okay.
I like that. We're here to help you blow. That would be a good sign. That would be a sign that would be funny. That's
Chris, I spend far too much of my time coming up with these little slogans.
That is a good one. That's a good one.
It's not out ethics to ditch Dianetics. I've got tons of them.
God, I love it. I love it. Cool. And then good. So protest away. And again, I just want effective action out there, guys. That's what this is about, right? Is like targeted, effective action. That's the way to go with this. Now, that being said, what's the deal with this MP government stuff you've been up to?
Yeah, it's all taken a bit of a turn. So to catch people up who perhaps aren't aware of, I'll just give a very quick rundown. In November, the mayor of East Grinstead, which is where St. Hill is, the UK headquarters of Scientology, the mayor and a number of councillors went to the IS event. There's a picture of him on stage accepting a £50,000 check for his charity. And I essentially just wrote to the mayor back in November, and I was approaching it with the thinking that he's probably naive or ignorant. He's fallen victim to safe pointing, doesn't know Scientology are actually trying to bring him and the council under their control. They're just being good citizens and trying to help the community, and what harm is done. So went in there wanting to educate him. I was very quickly shot down and told not to discuss it on social media. I was blocked on Twitter. The reaction I got from the mayor was a clear indicator to me that it's not just he realized he made a mistake. and that's that. But actually, the infiltration, the influence Scientology have over the council is perhaps much deeper than I even expected. Because as I did more digging, more and more counselors I found out had been going to Scientology events, and some of the counselors had moved up to the next level of government. And then I found out that Mims Davies, the local member of parliament, actually awarded St. Hill a COVID Heroes Award for their work in the community during the pandemic, nominated by the council. And at that point, I thought, this is a bigger problem than I thought.
Yep. In other words, the safe pointing has bit a lot harder and a lot deeper than you had imagined.
Exactly. That point is safe, right? Like they've got so many inroads to the council, official council events that happen in East Grinstead, like the Christmas light switch on event in the town was staffed by volunteers from St. Hill. The gazebo for the town council, they had like a little tent where people can go and meet the councillors and stuff, was being run by St. Hill volunteers, right? Like it's a huge problem. And so I decided to go to a council meeting in January on Zoom and asked a question. I said my story. I said, there's lots of allegations of abuse going on, and this is very briefly my story. Do you think it's appropriate that, that you're going to these events? I'm not asking for you to judge Scientology or make a ruling or whatever, but do you think it's appropriate? And what are you doing to protect people and vulnerable adults and children from abuse at these properties that you are regularly going to events at?
Right.
And it was a very non-answer, but fair enough. That's kind of what I expected. So the next council meeting, I actually didn't go. 29th of January, 4 people went and asked questions. There were a number of other people who were watching it but didn't ask questions. I wasn't there. And they asked really, really great questions. And the council basically doubled down on their position. This week, the news is that they have come out with a statement saying that I am a bully and that I'm harassing councillors. And for that reason, they denied my request for a transcript of the council meeting, because they redacted all of the questions that were asked about Scientology from the minutes of the official public town council meeting. Right. They rejected my request for a transcript because it's a vexatious request and that I'm a bully, which is just like, have you ever heard of a council, a government authority, pointing the finger going, oh, you're a bully? Like, it's textbook Scientology in my mind. And it's just making, like, I'm not going away. Like, I don't understand what they think is going to happen.
Well, I'll tell you, this is probably what exactly occurred. Is this guy is freaking out over the public attention you're bringing to the fact that he is compromised, that the whole council has been compromised in a very public way. You are showing this to be the case. They get up on the phone and call into St. Hill and go, oh my God, what are we supposed to do? And the St. Hill guys tell them what to do. That's the perfect product of safe pointing, of Scientology applying its policies to create these safe points. In other words, that mayor's job now is to forward and defend Scientology, not actually do his job of protecting the citizens of his, sphere of responsibility. It's a compromised position, and you're exposing that. And I'm here for it. Just,
Yeah.
Because they act like Scientologists, because they're getting their marching orders from Scientologists, calling you a bully, targeting you directly for daring to ask questions that are very, very relevant to the situation, especially considering Scientology's abuses. So really, the only way to carry on with this is continue hitting them with the truth, but you've been taking this higher.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to finish that little point, I just wanted to say that for context, right, East Grinstead Town Council have very little power and authority in the local area. Like, their main responsibilities are things like the plant pots and the street lights and like this very local issues. Their sphere of influence is very small. And that's their point in defense, is like, why does it matter if we go to Scientology events? Because we don't really do anything anyway. And that's which is funny, but the thing, they're missing the point. It's a problem because what they do is they nab you while you're in the town council, and over the course of your career, as you move up in local government, 20 years or whatever of your career, suddenly they've got someone who's at like member of parliament level, right? Who's at the top national level government, who's been working with Scientology for the best part of their career. So that's the game Scientology play. And I want the councillors to understand that it's not necessarily this particular council, it's what it means and why they're doing it, that's important. And it's shown that that's been happening, because there's safe points in Mid Sussex District Council, and obviously now we know Mims Davis is the MP as well. But in terms of Parliament, which is taking things further that you mentioned, I wrote to my MP back in September, who is Diane Abbott. She is the first Black female elected member of parliament in British history. She's been working in government since 1987. She's a very well respected and well seasoned politician. She actually, there was a survey by, I think it was Amnesty International, did like an investigation and found that she is the most abused and harassed member of parliament. 50% of all abuse directed at female MPs is directed specifically at her. So she has, for her entire career, always been dealing with harassment and horrific treatment from the public. And that's a really horrible thing, obviously, but I couldn't think of a better prepared person to take on the fight against Scientology, because she's not going to back down from fair game. So actually that works in our benefit. So when I wrote to her, she's my local MP, I said, hey, this is what happened to me in Scientology. I'm concerned about this, this, and this. What can you do to help me? Question. And she replied by saying, I've written to HMRC, which is the tax office, and requested a full investigation into their finances because they have a history of fraud internationally, and it's concerning. And gave me a couple of other bits of advice, but too, which was already huge. She didn't write back and go, oh, think about doing this, or there's not really much I can do. No, she said, I've already taken action, and I'll keep you updated with if any response that I get. I have now built a pretty good relationship with Diane Abbott. I've met with her on Zoom, and we had a really lengthy discussion about everything. And I mean everything that is going on and why it's important. And we have a really strong plan in place as to next steps. She's received a response from her request to HMRC. HMRC is like the IRS, right? Like, this is not, some small government authority. This is the tax office. And this shows the power of Diane Abbott and her influence in government. Even though she's in the opposition party, she's well respected and known. So if she says something, people listen, right? HMRC responded to her, not just some executive or assistant saying, thank you for raising this concern, we'll get back to you. The chief executive of the tax office wrote back to her and mentioned an earlier tax ruling that happened last year to do with Scientology. He's aware of Scientology and their finances and their tax case last year. And obviously he can't comment on what he's doing, if he is doing anything at all. But the fact that it's being dealt with at that level, I think, is huge. And that's just massive respect and thanks to Diane Abbott, because without her, that couldn't have happened.
Well, and that's exactly the counterpoint to the city council that I would love to point out here is when you have people who are not safe pointed by Scientology, who are not compromised, in other words, by the church's misinformation and propaganda and other nonsense that they get up to, then you have somebody who can see it pretty clearly for what's really going on. And there is rampant fraud in the Church of Scientology. We've discussed it at length over the years here with the Chase wave and credit card fraud and senior and elder abuse, child abuse, so many levels of nonsense going on with Scientology right in your backyard. You've exposed personal testimonials and stories about this, so these people will take it seriously. So I guess what I'm saying is, fucking A, dude, keep going.
Thank you. But look, thank you. But I also just want to really highlight that, it's not just me. Like, this is a team effort. And I couldn't have got to where we're at already without the support of people like you and other creators in SPT, Mike Grinder, Mark and Claire Headley, like all of these people have been helping behind the scenes, helping me craft this and give me the bits of information that I need and the references and all this sort of stuff. Yes, I've been putting it all together, but it's a team effort. So thank you, Chris, and everybody else that's been helping with this, and the support of everyone watching as well and listening. Like that's, I couldn't spend all my time doing this if it wasn't for the support of the guys and girls watching this. So thank you. But this is only just the beginning, and I think it showed the level at which it's being handled, I think, is really promising. And that's only come off the back of strategy, right? And I guess I take this from my marketing. I work in marketing, right? It's all about strategy. That's what I do for a living. So I'm always thinking 5 steps ahead of where we're at. So this is stuff I've been working on for almost an entire year, but I've only recently started talking about it because I've been planning, thinking about, okay, what do we need to do? Who do we need to speak to? Who's the best person to approach? And what's the case that we need to make? Because if you just call up Diane Abbott and go, hey, I was in a cult that, I think are doing fraud, she's going to be like, okay, where's the evidence, right? What happened? Tell me more. And if you can't produce that, it's just not going to go anywhere. And then you've lost your opportunity. So that strategy piece has been really important. And if you're watching this and you're excited and impressed by what's happened already, trust me, there is so much more and it's going like, I'm actually mind blown myself at how who's involved in this and how serious it's being taken. And I am pretty certain that this is going to end up being a huge problem for Scientology in the very near future.
Awesome. Well, that is what we're all about, right? That's the whole point of bringing the fight back to Scientology, is doing things that are effective, that are strategic, that are like going to actually make a difference in the big picture of this. And that's all anybody wants with any of this, right? That's the thing. And the Aftermath Foundation right now is busier than ever, apparently, with business they're dealing with of people leaving and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of very, very good things happening right now in the ex-Scientology world. And I think that I want to focus on those things because I think I'm excited by them. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, and I think just one final comment from me is that there's no right or wrong way to do this, right? Everybody brings their own thing to the table, right? And I really want to make sure I'm not coming across in the way that I'm like, I'm doing this and everybody else is wrong because they're doing it differently. And I'm not suggesting that you said that I was like that, but I just want to make it really, really clear to everybody that everybody's effort in this movement has value, right? There's value in protesting and raising public awareness. There's value in doing documentaries and speaking to the press. There's value in doing the government activity. You know what? There's value in simply watching these videos and participating online with comments and live chats and all that sort of stuff, because all of it pieces together in this big puzzle that is the movement against Scientology. So everybody's got a part to play. There's no right way or wrong way. I think it's just everyone's got their own plan of attack, and together it ends up being, hopefully, the downfall of the Church of Scientology. But it's not ever going to be this one thing is what made Scientology fall down. It's a multi-pronged attack.
Big time. Absolutely big time. It's death by 1,000 cuts, etc. And of course, we have, the benefit of Scientology really going out of its way to do itself in too. So we've got a lot of everything's aligned, you could say. All right. So on that happy note, I think we will look at starting to wrap up the show here. Alex, I want to thank you for guest appearing here this week and giving us a show, because I don't want to do these things by myself. I was just going to skip again this week because I didn't think that was, the whole point of this is the back and forth of it and the news and stuff. So thank you very much for reaching out and stepping up and helping me out with this week.
Thank you for giving me a chance. Apparently I'm a bigot and I'm a bully and I'm causing all sorts of trouble and I'm a horrible, nasty person that's just trying to exploit my few weeks of participation in the Church of Scientology. So thank you, Chris, for giving me a chance.
Yeah, we got to help our local bigots, right? Oh my God. Scientology. All right, folks out there. Of course, I always say, subscribe to Tony's blog because that's where we're, based a lot of our news on here for this show. But of course, with Alex here, subscribe to Alex's YouTube channel. It's Apostate Alex on YouTube. And Alex, any other way that folks can reach out to you or find out about you?
Yeah, so I got Scientologybusiness.com is my blog, which is where I'm reporting on all of this sort of activity. It's just focusing on like the money, the lawsuits, the finances, all that sort of stuff in the UK, Europe, and Commonwealth. So it's not like a personal blog where I'm commenting on stuff. It's just reporting the news in that sort of world. So go and check that out, of course. Do go and support Tony Ortega as well, because he's also had a huge part to play in all of this. And I feel honored to have filled his spot while he's been away.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for doing so. Folks out there, like, subscribe, share, do all the things. Thanks for coming around, and we will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
See you later.